My wife of 12 years was cheating. She was having threesomes on a weekly basis. My wife is employed as a travel agent, possessing the knack for securing a wide array of deals, including impressive discounts on hotels. As for the hotels, I don't know the details. However, during her college years, she found time to cheat on me. Although she had numerous friendships with men, it didn't bother me too much. Oddly enough, a former close friend with whom she had a falling out warned me to be careful with her. It wasn't until I remembered that warning that I realized my wife was prone to this behavior. She always kept to her schedule and came home on the promised time. Even during outings with friends, she did not stay out late. Even though her job involves traveling, she works part-time, which gives her an opportunity for infidelity. After a day at work, I returned home to find my wife absent. However, about 15 minutes later, she arrived while I was in the kitchen. Her attire wasn't typical of work. She was wearing shorts that caught my attention. She explained that she had gone for a walk, a reason that seemed reasonable at the time, leading me to dismiss any suspicions. After several weeks, I began to observe her wearing this outfit more frequently when I returned home from work, and I'd assumed she was simply taking up walking as a routine. However, on a particular day as I was heading home, I happened to see my wife. She was walking from the vicinity of an apartment complex near our house, still wearing those very same shorts. This led me to ponder why she chose to don shorts that, in my view, were excessively brief. When I inquired, she simply expressed her fondness for strolling in various locations, seeking a change of scenery, so to speak. I nodded in understanding and accepted her explanation. From then on, the subject didn't come up again between us. I subsequently assumed that she was going mainly to keep fit, as she was already in good shape. A few weeks passed, and one day at work during my break, I'm having a casual conversation with a coworker who approached me to chat and exchange gossip. At that point, he proceeds to inform me about a close friend of his who was engaging in frequent threesomes with a woman they met on a friend-finding website. I respond with a surprised, "That's quite intriguing," and he adds that the woman involved is also quite attractive. I inquired as to what she looked like. He said he didn't have a picture of her, but promised he would text his friend to send a picture. After that conversation, I didn't dwell on the subject. When I got home, it turned out that my wife was taking a shower. Upon entering the house, I made my presence known, and my wife said she would soon finish her shower. When she came out, she asked me how my day had been, and I told her that it had been a normal day at work. I then recounted a conversation with a colleague who told me that his friend was having a threesome with a woman. Such encounters seemed to happen frequently. She replied surprised, "I don't think I could ever do something like that." In the evening, we had dinner, watched a movie, and went to bed. The next day, I went to work. I was on break, and my coworker brought up a conversation about a guy whose friend, along with another acquaintance, regularly engages in threesomes. These incidents seem to happen on a weekly basis. He came over to my table with his phone in his hand and said his friend had forwarded him a picture of a woman they were hanging out with. Can you guess who this woman is? To my amazement, it was none other than my wife, captured in a candid photo with two other men. In the other photo, she was wearing the same shorts I had seen her in countless times before. My heart was pounding frantically, but I managed to keep my composure. I replied, "She looks attractive." Later, when the workday was over, I drove home and encountered a situation reminiscent of the previous day. My wife was in the shower again, and I found it strange, especially since it had happened repeatedly. When she came out of the shower, unaware of my presence since I hadn't announced myself, she was surprised to see me. "I didn't hear you come in," she exclaimed. I calmly told her how my day at work went without revealing that I found out she was cheating on me from a coworker. As the evening progresses, she notices my forced silence. Sensing my mood, she asks, Is everything okay? Is something bothering you? I nonchalantly explained that my boss was unhappy that I didn't complete the project, no big deal. The next day, during a break at work, a colleague comes up to me and we have a brief conversation. At this point, I pluck up my courage and ask him if he can share the photos he has of a woman with whom they had a threesome. Unfortunately, he refused, explaining that he could not fulfill my request. I calmly remarked, "This is a picture of you showing my wife with your friend and his acquaintance." He was confused and asked, "Really?" I confirmed, "Yes." He continued, "I can't send them to you, but you can take a screenshot." I intended to confront her and chase her out of our home, but before taking any action, I decided to gather evidence. I asked, "Does a friend have her profile?" He replied, "Wait a minute, I'll call him." Right before my eyes, he dialed his friend's number. After answering the phone, his friend asked the reason for the question. He explained, "Dude, it's my coworker's wife." I heard his friend exclaim, "Oh, wow." The friend then forwarded him the profile she was using, and I discreetly took a picture. I assured them that none of them would be involved in leaking information about my wife. However, with each passing day, I found it increasingly difficult to concentrate. The realization that my wife was regularly cheating on me with two men at the same time began to gnaw at me, preventing me from concentrating on my work. And as it turned out, this was happening on a regular basis. At the end of each work day, I returned home. When I got home, I found my wife absent. After I found out about her cheating, I refrained from communicating with her by phone and text. It took about an hour before she entered the house. From her appearance, it was obvious that she had been working all day. Because of her part-time job, I often didn't know what days she worked, as she preferred not to reveal those details and I didn't ask. That day, I refrained from greeting her when she appeared. Instead, I met her gaze and calmly informed her that I knew what she was doing. Perplexed, she asked, "What do you mean?" I quickly pulled out my phone and showed her the incriminating photos. She stood there with her mouth open and an expression of surprise. Then I calmly spoke the words, "It's time for you to pack your things." Just a few words. In response, contempt rang through her voice. "You can go to hell. I'm not leaving." At that moment, my heart raced again. "Go to hell," I shot back, determination sounding in the words. Then said in a calm tone, "Get ready. I intend to ruin your reputation." At that moment, I thought of leaving, realizing that she might falsely claim that I was involved. Quickly gathering the necessary things, I hurried to leave. Getting behind the wheel, I dialed my mom's number. The distance between us was about 30 minutes. I asked if I could stay with her until the divorce. Proceedings were finalized. She was shocked when I said that. Afterward, she asks about the reasons for my decision. After learning about the situation, she exclaims, "Oh no." My mom welcomes me warmly, hugs me, and pities me. She then asks how I uncovered the deception. In response, I pull out my phone and show her the proof. Her reaction is very violent. She shrieks in shock and turns away. At that moment, my father enters the room, greets me, and asks the reason for my visit. I just gesture to my bags, letting him know I'm staying. A puzzled expression appears on his face. Suddenly, my mother intervenes and tells me frankly that my wife is cheating on me. My father's eyes appear as though they might pop out of their sockets due to the shock. Subsequently, my mother asserts, "Believe me when I tell you she's being unfaithful." In response, my dad utters, "What?" in a state of utter disbelief. Update. I arrived at my parents' house, who were shocked at what had happened. After leaving our home, I had not received any messages from my wife or made contact with her. Several weeks had passed since my departure, during which time I had been actively gathering information and accumulating the necessary photographs. I intend to email these pictures to her parents, friends, and coworkers. One workday during a break, a coworker came up to me and presented me with another picture of my wife, but this time she was with the wrong guy. He had come across her profile on 2 other websites. He advised me to keep the picture. I looked up at him, somewhat puzzled by his suggestion. Meeting my gaze, he said, "I know you have no intention of continuing to live with it. Please tell me that you are not." In response, I informed him of my intention to ruin her reputation. He offered his help, but I declined, explaining that I believed I could handle it myself. After our conversation, I went back to my office and contacted several lawyers. I arranged a personal meeting with one of them. I informed the attorney of my desire to begin divorce proceedings due to the fact that my wife had cheated on me. In response, he asked if I had any evidence of her infidelity. In Maine, we have the ability to file for divorce based on irreconcilable differences, and infidelity is one of the grounds. He further inquired if she was working. I said yes, she was. She works as a part-time travel agent while I am employed at a tech firm. He proceeded to inquire about my objectives for the divorce. I asserted that I have no intention of providing her with any portion of my finances or granting her alimony. He then questioned whether I had engaged in any conversations with her regarding the situation. I disclosed that I hadn't communicated with her for a span of 3 weeks. There were no messages or calls at this time. I wrote him a check and gave him permission to proceed with the paperwork. He assured me of the promptness of his actions. After leaving the attorney's office, I returned to my parents' home and began collecting the emails and her contact information I had. Subsequently, I pondered my coworker's words for a long time. So the next day while at work, I decided to seek his help to smear her reputation. During our conversation during a break, he mentioned that a friend of his had informed him that he was no longer dating my wife. According to his friend, she stopped coming over to his house. He then suggested that we post her picture on various websites and share it with everyone she knows. I scheduled everything to be done the next evening after work. We picked a time, agreed on a specific time to start posting online and sending out emails. On the evening of the same day after returning home, I began the process of sending emails with images of my soon-to-be ex-wife with these men. At the same time, my coworker created a profile for her on the very dating site she was using under the name Cheated on Husband. After all these actions, I expected a flurry of calls and messages from her, but to my surprise, there were none. Several weeks passed and the silence continued. Then, during a workday, my attorney called to inform me that she had officially been served with a summons. Now I was just waiting for a hearing date. I left work and headed to my parents' house. I was sitting on the couch engrossed in the television with my father when we were interrupted by a knock on the door. My father looked at me, asking if I was expecting guests. I answered no. Walking to the door, I opened it and saw my soon-to-be ex-wife. Crying and upset, she looked at me and said, "I never meant to hurt you." She then informs me of her departure, gives me the keys to the house, and tells me I can keep it. With tears in her eyes, she leaves. I am left in shock. I turn around and look at my father standing next to me. He notices my perplexed expression and asks, "What happened?" I tell them that she said she was leaving and handed me the keys, offering to leave the house. Afterwards, I told my mom about the incident, who also thought it was strange. I didn't dwell on it. As the divorce hearing was approaching, I started preparing to go back to the house. When I got there, I saw that she had taken almost all the furniture with her. I wasn't too worried about it, as I knew I could replace the furniture. On the day of the divorce hearing, she did not show up. The trial was a short one. About a month after the divorce, I received a text message from my ex-wife asking how I was feeling. I chose not to respond. Despite this, she continued to send me messages. I didn't respond. As soon as I finished work, I bought a new phone and changed my number, giving it only to my parents. Despite the ongoing shock of everything that had happened, I realized that for the sake of my mental health and well-being, I needed to move forward. Our 12-year marriage was over, although I never expected anything like this to happen. It's unbelievable how one single photo of a coworker brought this truth to light. Who would have thought? I'm thinking about dating, but realize that my mental state is not ready for it yet. Thank you for listening to the story to the end, and if you like it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you think about the story.